contract is stating. I want to make sure that if that is the case, that we,
It is being paid fully by,
it's not. We're short per, well, we were told it's going to cost us 19,000 if we fill all seats.
it is being fully funded by two separate UPK grants, American Rescue Plan UPK grant, and New York State UPK grant.
But I thought the budget process, we identified that because the cost of it exceeds the amount that we're receiving on the grant, that it's actually not fully funded.
I believe it is.
By 25,000, I forget what the number was.
We did put 19 in,
Right.
but I think, didn't that second grant come after the fact?
And does that cover empty seats?
Does it cover?
Empty seats? If we're paying for 90 seats, does it cover even if we only have 75?
I will pay for 5 classrooms. That's how we're paying for it on a contract.
Right, the contract, yes, but on the grant, how does the grant cover it? Does it cover for per student or per classroom?
I believe it's an application for a grant for funds for UPK programs.
I'm curious to see that because I'm concerned from what I've heard in the past that it's per student and we only get paid for the students that we have. Unless there's a second grant, and now we'll cover the difference. And if that's the case, we're going to be paying for a lot of students that we're not filling if it's per student that we get the grant money back. So that I have a concern with, and I want to make sure that we're writing this contract properly.
The contract with scope is for $5,800 per student is their calculation, but it's 5 classrooms.
Right, for 5 classrooms.
That's true.
I'll check, but the UPK grants, 2 of them, do cover the cost of up to 5 classrooms for the UPK programming in West Hempstead.
So if I'm understanding correctly, because of the 2 grants, this program should cost taxpayers $0.
That's not what our budget's.
But maybe we don't have to spend it. But from what you're telling me or what we're going to try to find out, we're expecting that the 2 grants cover the program fully and the taxpayers paid $0 for this program?
UPK, yes.
They don't pay for you.
I thought the bids came in higher than what we were granted.
We can't.
That was the issue.
Everything else that.
Correct.
If we don't use the money, then we don't use it. We don't use
Right.
it. We just don't use it. That's what
The scope programming. is
Yeah.
5 classrooms worth of programming, up to 90 students.
That's right.
And we're covering. the
That's what we
cost of
pay
the
for,
grant.
5 classrooms, 2 teachers and 8, up to 18 students per class.
So there's 0 cost to district, fine, and I'm fine. with it.
But the cost associated with scope is more than what we're getting in the way of the grant. We just can't
No,
help
that's
it.
not true.
That was our lowest bid.
No, but the 2 grants are more than what our programming.
With the
Oh.
second grant, with the state funded money, we were below it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, because there's just, I think there's a scope line in the budget.
Yes,
that reflects
because
the
we
loss.
were not sure that we would have that.
Okay, good. But that's good news.
Okay.
Um,
Good, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passed. And motion to approve dockets 3-49 through 3-50.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And motion to move docket 3-51.
Second.
Any questions? Mr. Lazar?
Terms in this contract is for 7/10/23 to 8/10/23. How are we voting on something that started already?
We didn't have a meeting. There are plenty of times where you'll see that we're voting on something that had to happen in like behind, unfortunately. And so we have to pass it to pay. We can't pay them until we pass it.
So I'm just curious, what if, and not that I'm voting against it, but what if we did vote against it as a board? What happens then? What's the liability for the school on that contract?
The likelihood is that we would not vote against a recommendation of the superintendent.
That's money to cover the summer program through Ramp Pathways grant, so it's not coming out of your
It's
pocket or
not.
anyone else's pocket.
Okay, so, but besides for that, it normally wouldn't happen during the year. This is just because.
There are times where, so for example, and people, we all know that it happens. technically, we don't have a meeting until September 19th or 8th, whatever the date is, 15th. We start school September 6th. We're gonna hire up until the day school starts. People are gonna get hired, but they may or may not, if we don't have a meeting prior to that. On the 19th, we're gonna appoint people that very possibly started working on September 6th. So yes, in some instances, it does happen because we don't have a choice. But rarely would that be the case.
Thank
Okay, any other questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion to move docket 3-52.
So, second.
Who moved that?
Joe.
So, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I need a motion to move docket 3-53.
So
You're moving it? David moved it.
Joe, second.
Any questions? Mr. Lazar?
Yes. On page 10, the dates are wrong. It has the dates of 2022 to 2023. Is this an older version of the document?
Oh,
This was the
This
PDP
was-
plan. Oh,
yeah.
this, yeah, you know what? It was probably a typo, right?
yes, it was rolled over probably with the typo.
So we've used this plan in the past.
This is a fairly new plan. This plan was passed recently because we had, each year we go through it and we do on our committee. So, and it was reviewed by the state to make sure that we're in compliance with their regulations. But we have a committee that reviews all the pieces every year.
So this would.
So that particular page may have been bullet, yeah, like just
Right.
boilerplate, and they didn't change the dates.
But the rest of the plan, there has been a lot of adjustments from the. prior
Yes,
year.
actually, I spent a lot of time this year with the state reviewing it to make sure that it was in compliance in terms of our mentorship as well as our approval of PD for our teachers.
Good, thank you. How do we, at the end of the year, what do we use to validate that this is doing the job?
Wait.
What,
Validate what?
That we're accomplishing our goals.
Goals in what?
This is a professional development, right?
In the professional development plan?
The professional development plan is to develop the teachers, training for the teachers and stuff like that. And then we want to see if this is accomplishing what our goal is. So what do we do data wise or whatever to validate that we are accomplishing it, or know the next year that we want to make adjustments to the plan? So we accomplish.
As Ms. Riley stated, the committee meets, they review everything, surveys are sent out to the staff. For PD for the next year, and then comes here, gets approved, that's get approved by the state.
Right, so surveys to the staff is what we use for validating. Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. And a motion to move dockets 3-54 through 3-60.
So moved.
second,
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. And a motion to move docket 3-61.
So
second,
Any questions? Page 4, item 8250-150-7 and 82850.150-8 and 82855.152-08-2800. These items are non-contingent items and they cannot have money transferred into these codes without voter approval, according to the school district accounting and reporting manual, page 26. This is why I was asking the questions earlier. So I'm wondering how we're moving that, or where else are we gonna get the funds to pay for those costs?
Can you repeat those numbers?
It's 828, it's on page 4, it's 82850.150-7. 82850.150-8 and 82855.152-08-2800.
I'll look into those.
What?
I'll look into those.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm also curious, during the budget hearings, I heard a lot about how fuel oil and gas and heating prices were so high that we exceeded the budget. However, over here, we're transferring $54,000 out of those budget items to pay for another item. Was money put into this budget item earlier in the year that we're taking out now? How did this,
Yeah, we definitely transferred money into those lines to cover oil costs. Fall, I think it was October, we were out of money for lab.
Okay, so because I have to look into those three items that I had mentioned before, we may need to amend this so we do not allocate and pay that money until we validate that we're able to move it, or what are our options?
I think it's the same option that you had before. You're saying that it's an inappropriate transfer, or are you asking the question if it's inappropriate?
I'm first asking the question. I'm saying my understanding is that's an inappropriate transfer, but I'm asking the question if that it's.
What is the basis of your statement that's inappropriate?
These items are co-curricular activities, which I believe we had discussed during the budget hearing meetings, that those items would be lost if we were in a contingent budget, which means that.
Not all co-curricular activities,
Not all co-curricular.
not all. Clubs would definitely be out, but not all sports would necessarily be cut. Those are not necessarily contingent items, but a contingency budget would automatically cut clubs.
Okay, so the first two were clubs, were from the club items, and the last one had to do with coach from the, I don't know, maybe one of the varsity teams or something like that. So my question is for any of those three or all of those three, are we allowed to transfer money to pay for those items?
I'd have to know what specifically is in that person. Is it a teacher that's a mandated cost in the collective bargaining agreement?
They're all in the bargaining agreement.
Then likely that is something that's a ordinary contingent expense.
Even if it's for co-curricular activities?
Yes.
Okay, which means that would not have to necessarily be cut during the budget, if we go into contingencies.
Again, I have to know exactly what it is specifically to be able to give you that. So if you have those questions, generally you ask for the meeting.
We only get the information a couple of days before, so that was up till last night. I don't know if you were awake at 2 o'clock this morning.
You know
Yeah,
what?
it's generally wait pretty.
I'll send it to you next time. Thank you.
All in favor of this docket? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes. I need a motion to move docket 3-62.
So wasn't moved.
Second. Any questions?
Like to table this until after the next docket number? Is that possible?
Till after the prices for the milk and meals, but
Yeah.
we can vote on them. We should. I think it doesn't make a difference. We can table it to the next item, just move them around, right?
Then there have to be a motion to table, second, the board has to vote.
It's motion to table after the next one.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on this item?
I have more questions.
Okay.
One is, this is food service items, and we were talking about before the cafeteria fund. So I put in here that I want to make sure that that fund break even because we don't have any extra money allocated towards it. And right now, from this and from the prices per meals, it looks like that the operations for the cafeteria fund would lose money. We would not have enough funds in there. And so I would make a suggestion that we actually mark up food by 20% so that we have enough fund in the accounts to pay food service operations.
I'm sorry, did he say 20%? I just want to make sure I heard correctly.
It did,
20%?
yeah,
Okay,
it's about 53 cents a day.
20% though. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I'd like to open that up a little bit. What is our philosophy with regard to pricing the meals that we sell? How do we do that? Do we try to recover our costs? Do we not recover costs? Do Do we try to make money on it? What is our end goal in setting the pricing?
As Mr. Mustecchi said, if I'm correct, our district is not self-sustaining food service. And I don't know, making money off of feeding our children,
Right.
especially when we have a 40% free and reduced lunch group. I'm not comfortable with that. Just even the thought of that is uncomfortable for me, because again, just because somebody's not getting free and reduced lunch could be their parents don't want to fill that out. They're not comfortable with filling out those forms to get the free and reduced lunch, but doesn't mean that they could afford an extra 20 or 30% for their food.
Times two, if it's breakfast and.
Okay, so it's a deliberate decision to have our revenues not cover the cost. It's fine, I mean, as long as it's a.
No, I get that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you know.
Yeah, I didn't know what our philosophy was, yeah.
I think it's, say, it would be a decision not to cover our costs. I think the position is to keep the food costs as low as possible and affordable for as many as possible without undue pressure on our community,
The cost, meaning what we buy it for.
our costs, yeah.
The cost of what they.
We put it out, we do that, so now we're up to the decision of how much do we want to recover? Do we want to recover all of it, some of it? More than it costs? Probably not, I would take that off the table. What is our position on that? Recognizing there are people that can't afford it.
Right, so I think that the fact that we leave our prices to a point where somebody wants to purchase lunch and make sure they have lunch every day. Because again, you do have people who are proud and don't fill out those forms.
Right at that line.
And or don't make it because the poverty level, you know.
But
While
it's
they-
a question that the fact that we are losing money on the meals. And how much money are we losing?
Well, it depends on how many meals we do in a year, I don't have those. It could be hundreds of thousands of meals, right? And even at 20 cents, it's a lot of money.
Who's ever losing 20 cents per meal?
Well, if you take, we're paying, do you have those numbers, 240, 250, something like that? And you charge 220, I forget what the numbers were exactly.
So what we're just mentioning, what? The next item
Well, it depends.
we're mentioning is that we are contracted to pay $2.91.4 for lunch meal, but we
That's
were
what we're
going.
paying for the lunch.
We're paying
It's
for the-
$2.91. We pay somebody $2.91 to deliver it,
Right,
feed our
that was
children.
good.
And we are wanting to charge $2.60 to $2.85.
Yeah,
And what do we charge today? $2.20? You said?
What?
And how much? are we
No, the next vote, the reason why I want to table this until after.
I don't understand.
These two items that have to do with food service.
Till, table it till after what? I'm
After
asking.
the actual
Okay, wait, hold on one
discussion
second.
about lunch.
Brian, can you just,
We do get state and federal aid. That's not part of this calculation. This is how much it costs per meal, but we have, unfortunately, we have significant.
Right, but even the prices we set, then not everybody pays the full price we set, which is, some pay reduced, some pay nothing. But someone else fills in the gap, right? If the government fills in the gap. Yeah, so effectively, we can look at the selling price, regardless if it comes from the student or the combination of the government and the student, that's what we're getting per meal.
Correct.
So let's figure we're losing like 20, 30 cents a meal, something like that.
no, I think he's saying that the state is making up the difference.
Right,
No,
we don't have a losing, like, we can't tell this year what's happening. You can't say you lose 20 cents this year. School lunch hasn't even begun until September. But the goal is not to have a losing operation. So I think with the federal and state aid inclusive in our revenue for cafeteria fund, the goal is to break even.
So that's where my question was coming earlier. And that's why I said that, and I threw out a number here because everyone said we don't have that information in front of us. We don't have the information of what the $26,000 that was moved into the cafeteria.
it was
fund line item.
probably, and I'm guessing, probably to cover the loss for the year for people who didn't pay for the meal.
But
But getting back to the other part of it, you get it, the difference right now, you get made up with through state and federal aid, right? So the idea is to break even. If that's your question, that's the answer. Right? So we're not trying to make money, we're not trying to.
right, I'm not trying to figure out how to make money on this because it's not supposed
I
to.
didn't
it's supposed
say
to be
you were,
break even.
sir.
No, no.
He did say that.
What,
All I'm saying is, The difference that you guys are talking about over there, trustee Blas and yourself, that's where the aid comes in. Ideally, you're trying to break even. You really know? You don't know because you never know what's gonna happen. You don't know what kind of hardships people come into or don't come into. I don't, like, we can't. But the philosophy, if that's what the question was from trustee Blas, is to break even.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why I just wanted before also to make sure that all the items that are supposed to be part of food service operations, including the supervisors, which cost $70,000, are being covered by all of these costs, but no one has any information on.
No, I believe they are part of the cafeteria fund, but it's not, it's one piece of cafeteria fund, so it's not just 17 employees.
Anyway, we'll get back to you on that, as we said earlier.
So that was docket 3-62. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Well, motion passes. I need a motion to move docket 3-63.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Lazar?
Um. 363. Okay, so it's basically was the same as the conversation for the other one. And I just had one question on here. Never mind, it was answered earlier. Hi, I'm there.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And your motion to move dockets 3-64 through 3-68.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And a motion to move docket 3-69.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Lazar.
Okay, so my question, it was somewhat similar to someone from the audience had asked before, and that is, this first item has a few buses from the same company that have a few students that are close to each other. Is it possible that we can try to work with the schools and with the bus company to maybe arrange some of those buses to be consolidated to save the district money? Is that a possibility?
We always do that. We always do that. We continue to do that. We do it throughout the entire year. So I'll double check with Gina tomorrow, but we do that. And we're still working on it. But just because they're close to it doesn't mean they're the same start time. Sometimes it doesn't work out, you know, but there's various reasons as to why it may or may not occur, but that's definitely something that we look into because the costs for busing is absolutely absurd. And, you know, we just put out for a bid on a separate contract, third time, no one bid on it. So we're a little bit of a bind there, and that's gonna present another set of it. So, yes, it's something we look at and continue to look at.
Do we by any chance use any consulting companies that have helped districts in the past save money on their transportation? And I'm asking it on this item just because it's the first of all the bus contracts that we're re-signing for this year. But do we do that? And if not, can we find a company? Because I know that there are that have helped other school districts reduce their costs by on the transportation.
Well,
like whatever
we
they
do quadra bidding, we do bidding with BOCES, we do other work to try to consolidate costs, consolidate.
But have
And we have had a consultant here in the past. I can't remember his name to save my life.
We brought him in just recently.
But he has come in and especially when, 2 years ago, when he came in and yeah, I don't think that he actually even seen a dollar, but it's because of what's happening with these bus companies. And all the, you know, that's, all these companies collapsing and then people monopolizing the system. So, it is not something that we've never done.
Would we bring in a company potentially that would only take contingent if they saved us money? They would get money, has given us another set of eyes again, just to give us the opportunity.
I can't answer that right now, but I mean, if it's one of those things like, you know, when you grieve your taxes, they only get paid if you, then I can't imagine we wouldn't.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excuse me, motion passes. And a motion to move dockets 3-70 through 3-76. Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Any motion to move docket 3-16? Any questions? It was even. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. And a motion to move docket 3-77 through, hold on. 3-78.
So moved.
Yes.
That's gotta be vocal, or gotta be vocal. Any questions? All in favor? Aye, motion passes. For board privilege of the floor, our future meeting dates are on the back of the agenda. We have now reached the period for district residents and or employees of the district to address the board. This individual will be limited to 3 minutes of non-confidential agenda items with an overall maximum of 20 minutes for this portion of the meeting. Again, if you're in the audience here, please raise your hand. If you're in the virtual audience, please raise your virtual hand and I will call on you. Yes, Ms.
I'm again, Rachel PC. So just to follow up to what we were saying before about combining the route. I feel like there are a lot of dependencies or having multiple locations full time. Let's say all those logistics work out. When do you look at this and when do you determine this? This school is starting very short.
What do you mean? We look at it throughout the entire year because constantly throughout the year, we have issues where, you know, somebody's saying that kids are on the bus too long and, you know, it's unfortunate, but sometimes when we do combine routes like that, kids end up on the bus for an extremely extended period of time. So that is something that comes up throughout the year and we have to try to coordinate that. So Gina is constantly looking at routes that occur and throughout the entire summer and throughout these bids, they've been looking at that to see if, you know, if it would extend, you know, busing time, if it would, if the start times at the schools are acceptable. That's all stuff that's being looked at throughout the entire year.
So specifically now, at this point in time,
Right?
is it being looked at now and can it be determined before the start of the school?
Well, she does it every day. She works on busing and bidding every day.
August is,
Big-
it's incredible amount of work she does right now. It's like, because it ebbs and flows, right, with busing, of course, obviously, like, school start. You have to remember that we bus to 120 routes and 110. No other districts in the state of New York does. So one person doing it takes a little time. We are looking at, if anything changes, I will call it.
Okay.
Mr. Sergeant.
Tom Sargent, parent and resident. At the last meeting, Mrs. Bro, I brought up the thought of having an accounting, if you will, of what each of the board members does in their capacity as a trustee, and have that as part of the report presented each month to the community. And is that something that we can see starting next month?
Well, it would not be an accounting of what we're doing. It's of each individual member unless they're at an event or at another meeting. So like I sit on the Nassau Suffolk School Boards Association.
Correct.
We haven't had a meeting because it's the summertime. So that wouldn't be something that I would present until I came back from a meeting in, say, September or anything like that. If Joe had a sports committee meeting, those things would happen, but they wouldn't happen until
I just think it's
meetings actually occur.
for the community to see what the 7 people participate in. And in particular, if there's a pertinent question for sports, for example, I might go to Mr. Monroe. That has something to do with a BOCE situation. I may come and speak to you.
Right.
But I think it's important that the members of the community see what each of the 7 trustees.
Right, but reported committees, like, just so we're clear, yes, that's something that would get done, but it's like during reported committees and it would be based on a committee that you're on or something that you attend. It's not because, you know, I'm just gonna say, because you asked, it's not because you came and asked me about a BOCES question, I wouldn't talk about that here. That's not pertinent for this. It's not part of what we do here. But yes, like if we're going to some kind of an event, like we have a dinner, meeting next week, it would be that we could come back and speak on the speaker who was talking at that event. Okay.
I could give her a small report on what the meeting was.
Do we have any other questions? Do we have, Mr. Zelig, you have a question? If you can unmute, you know what, can you make sure that he can unmute himself?
Yeah.
Mrs. Ellis, can you try to unmute yourself? I'm not sure if it's gonna work yet. He might have to, hit a button. Okay, so if you're trying, we can't hear you, so just hold on 1 second.
What is, oh, there.
You have the mics disabled.
Ask him if you can try it now.
Mrs. Ellis, could you try it now?
Hi, yeah, I think you got it. Thank you. Just had a quick question. I know we talked about in the past the long-range enrollment study. Just wanted to follow up. I know there are funds in the budget for it. If there's been any progress on the enrollment study that was budgeted for this year, where does it stand and when will it be completed? Thank you.
The enrollment study has not started yet. It is something that works through BOCES and it's done on their timetable. As soon as we have a completion, we will give that report out at a board meeting.
I'm here.
If there's no, what? If there's no further questions at this time, I need to make a motion to go into executive session for advice of counsel and to discuss personnel.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your summer and we will see you, in a few weeks. Hopefully the summer goes.